Think and Grow Rich by Dr. Napoleon Hill. Chapter 1, Secret of Success Part B. Barnes actually thought himself into an organization with the incredible Edison. He thought himself into a fortune. He didn't have anything to begin with, aside from the ability to comprehend what he needed, and the assurance to remain by that craving until he understood it. He had no cash in the first place. He had little training. He had no impact. Be that as it may, he had activity, confidence, and the will to win. With these immaterial powers he made himself number one man with the most prominent creator who at any point lived. Presently, let us take a gander at an alternate circumstance, and study a man who had a lot of unmistakable proof of wealth, however lost it, since he halted 3 feet shy of the objective he was looking for. 3 feet from gold. One of the most widely recognized reasons for disappointment is the propensity for stopping when one is surpassed by transitory annihilation. Each individual is liable for this botch at once or another. An uncle of R.U. Darby was gotten by the gold fever in the gold rush days, and went west to burrow and develop rich. He had never heard that more gold has been mined from the cerebrums of men than has ever been taken from the earth. He had a special interest and went to work with pick and scoop. The going was hard, however his desire for gold was unmistakable. Following quite a while of work, he was compensated by the revelation of the sparkling mineral. He required hardware to carry the metal to the surface. Unobtrusively, he concealed the mine, backtracked his strides to his home in Williamsburg, Maryland, told his family members and a couple of neighbors of the strike. They got together cash for the required hardware, had it delivered. The uncle and Darby returned to work the mine. The main vehicle of metal was mined, and dispatched to a smelter. The profits demonstrated they had perhaps the most extravagant mine in Colorado. A couple of more vehicles of that metal would clear the obligations. At that point would come the large slaughtering in benefits. Down went the drills. Up went the expectations of Darby and uncle. At that point something occurred. The vein of gold mineral vanished. They had arrived at the finish of the rainbow, and the pot of gold was no more there. They bored on, urgently attempting to get the vein once more, all without any result. At long last, they chose to stop. They offered the hardware to a garbage man for $200 or $300, and took the train back home. Some garbage men are idiotic, yet not this one. He brought in a mining designer to take a gander at the mine and do a little figuring. The architect suggested that the undertaking had fizzled, on the grounds that the proprietors were curious about separation points. His counts indicated that the vein would be discovered only 3 feet from where the Darbys had quit boring. That is actually where it was found. The garbage man took a huge number of dollars in mineral from the mine, in light of the fact that he sufficiently realized to look for master counsel before surrendering. The vast majority of the cash which went into the apparatus was secured through the endeavors of R.U. Darby, who was then a youngster. The cash originated from his family members and neighbors, due to their confidence in him. He took care of each dollar of it, in spite of the fact that he was a long time in doing so. A short time later, Mr. Darby recovered his misfortune many occasions over, when he made the revelation that craving can be changed into gold. The disclosure came after he went into the matter of selling life protection. Recollecting that he lost an immense fortune, since he halted 3 feet from gold, Darby benefited by the involvement with his picked work, by the basic technique for saying to himself, I prevented 3 feet from gold, be that as it may, I will never stop since men state no when I request that they purchase protection. Darby is one of a little gathering of less than 50 men who sell more than $1 million in disaster protection every year. He owes his stickability to the exercise he gained from his quitability in the gold mining business. Before progress comes in any man's life, he makes certain to meet with a lot of impermanent annihilation, and, maybe, some disappointment. At the point when thrashing surpasses a man, the least demanding and most sensible activity is to stop. That is actually what most men do. In excess of 500 of the best men this nation has ever known, told the creator their most prominent achievement came only one stage past where destruction had overwhelmed them. Disappointment is a comedian with a sharp feeling of incongruity and slyness. It takes incredible joy in stumbling one when achievement is nearly close enough. A 50-penny exercise in constancy. Not long after Mr. Darby got his degree from the College of Harsh Times, and had chosen to benefit by his involvement with the gold mining business, he had the favorable luck to be available on an event that demonstrated to him that no doesn't really mean no. One evening he was helping his uncle granulate wheat in an old designed plant. The uncle worked on an enormous homestead on which various huge sharecrop ranchers lived. Unobtrusively, the entryway was opened, and a little hued youngster, the girl of an occupant, strolled in and took her place close to the entryway. The uncle looked into, saw the kid, and yapped at her generally, "What do you need?" Docilely, the youngster answered, "My mammy state sent her 50 pennies. "I'll not do it," the uncle countered, "presently you run on home." "Yes, sah," the youngster answered. Be that as it may, she didn't move. The uncle proceeded with his work, so hectically drew in that he didn't give enough consideration to the kid to see that she didn't leave. At the point when he gazed upward and saw her despite everything remaining there, he shouted at her, "I advised you to go home. Presently go, or I'll take a chance on you." The young lady said yes sah, however she didn't move an inch. The uncle dropped a sack of grain he was going to fill the plant container, got into a barrel fight, and headed toward the youngster with a demeanor all over that showed inconvenience. Darby held his breath. He was sure he was going to observe a murder. He realized his uncle had a wild temper. He realized that hued youngsters shouldn't challenge white individuals in that piece of the nation. At the point when the uncle arrived at the spot where the kid was standing, she immediately ventured forward one stage, turned upward at him, and shouted at the head of her piercing voice, "My mommy's gotta have that 50 pennies. The uncle halted, took a gander at her for a moment, at that point gradually laid the barrel fight on the floor, put his hand in his pocket, took out a large portion of $1, and offered it to her. The youngster took the cash and gradually upheld toward the entryway, never taking her eyes off the man whom she had recently won. After she had gone, the uncle plunked down on a crate and glanced out the window into space for over 10 minutes. He was considering, with wonderment, over the whipping he had quite recently taken.